Hey guys, today we're going to read chapter 12 of Number the Stars. We're going to recap chapter 11 before we start, so make sure that you have your reading response journals ready to go and participate with me. I love the chapter names of this book because I feel like it gives us a lot of stuff that we can try to predict. So the chapter 12, it says, "Where was Mama?" So if you remember from chapter 11, it left off where Peter Nielsen and Uncle Henrik are trying to get all of the Jews to escape. They're putting them in Uncle Henrik's boat, and he's taking them across the country or across the river or the ocean, across the ocean to Sweden, where they will be free. So that is where we're at, and they have just left. And back in the house are Anne Marie, Mama, and the Rosens. They're about to leave as well. So we're going to pick up in chapter 12. Where was Mama? Mr. Rosen tripped on the loose step outside the kitchen door. His wife grasped his arm, and he regained his balance. "It's very dark," Mamma whispered, as soon as they stood in the yard with their blankets and bundles of food gathered in their arms. "And we can't use any kind of light. I'll go first. I know the way very well, and you follow me. Try not to stumble over the tree roots in the path. Feel carefully with your feet. The path is uneven. And be very, very quiet," she added, unnecessarily. The night was quiet, too. A slight breeze moved in the tops of the trees, and from across the meadow came the sound of the sea's movement, which was a constant sound here that had always been. But no birds called or cried here now in the night. The cow slept silently in the barn, and the kitten upstairs in Kirsty's arms. There were stars here and there, dotting among the clouds, but no moon. Anne Marie shivered, standing at the foot of the steps. "Come," Mamma murmured, as she moved away from the house. One by one the Rosens turned and hugged Anne Marie silently. Ellen came to her last, and the two girls held each other. "I'll come back some day," Ellen whispered. "I promise." "I know you will," Anne Marie whispered back, holding her friend tightly. Then they were gone, Mamma and the Rosens. Anne Marie was alone. She went into the house, crying suddenly, and closed the door against the night. I can't imagine being in either Ellen or Anne Marie's shoes. They're losing their best friend for who knows how long. And I can't imagine what that was like to say goodbye to each other. The lid of the casket was closed again. Now the room was empty. There was no sign of the people who had sat there for those hours. Anne Marie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She opened the dark curtains in the windows. She curled once more in the rocker, trying to relax. She traced their route in her mind. She knew the old path too, but not as well as her mother, who had followed it almost every day of her childhood, with her dog scampering behind. But Anne Marie had often walked to town and back that way, and she remembered the turns, the twisted trees, whose gnarled roots pushed the earth now and then into knotted clumps, and the thick bushes that often flowered in early summer. She walked with them, in her mind, feeling the way through the darkness. It would take them, she thought, half an hour to reach the place where Uncle Henrik was waiting with his boat. Mamma would leave them there, pausing a minute, no more, for a final hug. And then she would turn and come home. It would be faster for Mamma alone, with no need to wait at the Rosens. From unfamiliar with the path, slowly felt their way along. Mamma would hurry, sure-footed, now, back to her children. The clock in the hall struck once. It was 2:30 in the morning. Her mother would be home in an hour, Anne Marie decided. She rocked gently back and forth to the old chair. Mamma would be home by 3:30. She thought of Papa, back in Copenhagen alone. He would be awake too. He would be wishing he could have come, but knowing too that he must come and go as always, to the corner store for the newspaper, to his office when the morning came. Now he would be afraid for them, and watching the clock, waiting for a word that the Rosens were safe, that Mamma and the girls were at the farm, starting a new day with the sun shining through the kitchen window and the cream on their oatmeal. It was harder for the ones who were waiting, Anne Marie knew. Less danger, perhaps, more fear. She yawned, and her head nodded. She fell asleep. It was a sleep as thin as the night clouds, dotted with dreams that came and went like the stars. Light woke her up, but it was not really morning, not yet. It was the only first hint of a slightly lightening sky, a pale gleam at the edge of the meadow, a sign that far away somewhere to the east, where Sweden still slept, morning would be coming soon. Dawn would creep across the Swedish fish farmland and coast. Then it would wash little Denmark with light and move across the North Sea to Norway. Anne-Marie blinked in confusion, sitting up, remembering for a moment where she was and why. But it was not right. The pale light at the horizon. It would be dark still. It should be night. She stood stiffly, stretching her legs, walking, and went to the hall to look at the clock. It was past 4. Where was Mamma? Perhaps she had come home, not wanting to wake Anne-Marie, and gone to bed. Surely that was it. Mamma must have been exhausted. She had been up all night, and made the dangerous journey to the boat, and returned through the dark woods, wanting only to sleep. Quickly Anne-Marie went up the narrow staircase. The door to the bedroom where she had slept with Ellen was open. The 2 small beds were neatly made, covered with old quilts, and empty. Besides, Uncle Henrik's door was open too, and his bed too was unused and empty. Despite her worry, Anne-Marie smiled slightly when she saw some of Henrik's clothing crumpled in a chair and a pair of shoes caked with barnyard dirt lying on the floor. He needs a wife, she said to herself, imitating Mamma. The door to the other bedroom, the one Kirsty and Mamma were sharing, was closed. Quietly, not wanting to wake them, Anne-Marie pushed it open. The kitten's ears moved, standing up straight, its eyes open wide, and its raised head and yawn. It pried itself out of Kirsty's arm, stretched, and then jumped slightly to the floor and came to Anne-Marie. It rubbed itself against her leg and purred. Kirsty sighed and turned in her sleep. One arm, free now of the kitten's warmth and comfort, flung itself across the pillow. There was no one else in the wide bed. Anne-Marie moved quickly to the window, which overlooked the clearing that was led to the path's entrance. The light outside was very dim, and she peered through the dimness, trying to see, looking for the opening in the trees where the path began, looking for Mamma to hurry home. After a second she saw a shape there, something unfamiliar, something that had not been there a day before, a dark shape. What is the shape? Go ahead and pause the video. Stop and jot. Anne-Marie looks out the door. She sees a shape. It's a dark shape, and it's unfamiliar. It has not been there before. I want you to write in your journals, what do you predict is the shape that she's seeing? A dark shape, no more than a blurred heap at the beginning of the path. Anne-Marie squinted, forcing her eyes to understand, needing to understand, but not wanting to understand. Then the shape moved, and she knew. It was her mother, lying on the earth. Dun, dun, dun. So her mother is lying on the ground, on the path. We are going to read chapter 13 tomorrow and figure out why is Anne-Marie's mom on the ground? What happened to her? So if you want to go ahead and predict, what do you think happened to Mama? We know she's lying on the ground. Is she alive? Is she hurt? What is happening? So why don't you go ahead and predict what happened, and we'll read chapter 13 tomorrow.